that there are things more important, and that there are, just to say it again, there are things beyond our natural life. I should have said at the beginning, I think this is an important insight. Catholic medical ethics recognizes that, that there is things more important than physical health, and that the end of, why humans were made is not limited to our life, natural lives, if you will, our lives on earth. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. Church carries on Jesus's ministry to the sick for 2,000 years. Christians and Catholics have taken care of the sick, the infirmed, hospitals, asylums, nursing homes run by the Catholic Church. Really, in many ways, they set the standard and for these kinds of institutions. And then, of course, the public, when the governments were organized enough to support institutions, they had hospitals too. The bishops talk about their responsibility to people. Here they say that they have the responsibility to make sure that what is being done in Catholic institutions, Catholic services, is ethical. They have the responsibility to encourage people to join the medical profession. This is an important, I remember Pope Benedict, how the treatment of the poor especially, but we can say the sick poor as well, was primary, along with preaching the gospel for the church, not something secondary, something primary. And then bishops have their responsibility to make sure that the sick, of course, especially Catholics now, have the sacraments, have what is necessary to prepare them for this, in a sense, great unknown life of the resurrection. We can't say that much about it. Some people like to go on and talk, but St. Paul says in Corinthians, eye is not seen, what God has prepared for us for those who love him. Corinthians or Romans, I forget. Okay. Any questions? Are we doing okay online? Okay. Just some of the that we're going to talk about. And there will be more than this. I just kind of wet our whistles a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about genetic manipulation. I think I have a note on this now. We're going to talk more about in vitro fertilization. I think all of us have heard the term. We'll try to explain it a little bit, even the biology on it. Embryonic experimentation. This is mostly, I think we can say, prohibited. I'm sure we can say mostly prohibited by the church. And we'll discuss why. Problematic pregnancies, what might be done? An ectopic pregnancy, long a difficulty, and some people think that you have to allow these, in this case of ectopic pregnancy, to take its natural course. Well, that's not true, and we're going to see why. Organ donation, we'll talk a little bit about that. Of course, that's the second part of the course. Palliative care, again, the second part of the course. Proportionate and disproportionate treatment, what is necessary to do and what is not necessary, but may be helpful. We'll give some ways to understand that and to proceed with that. Euthanasia, we'll be mentioning that a bit. Of course, this is one of the great challenges for the church these days, as governments are more permissive, becoming more permissive of euthanasia, and we know that it is wrong to take the life of another person, and so, or even for a person to take his or her own life. So we'll be talking about those. I wanted just to give kind of an introduction, some terms, understandings that I think are basic here. I can't emphasize enough the church's understanding and concern for the sanctity of human life. Really, it is not only that we are made in the image of God, basic Genesis, but God became human. This raised the dignity of life an infinite notch, if you will. And the church means to defend and support human life. Now, you know, some people disagree with the church's stance, but I think you will find a consistency and a coherency that it makes me proud, but that is worth attending to. Also, let's see. This is the way they're supposed to darken you see there. So now we'll go to also the dignity of marriage and the Marriage Act. Now, you know, a lot of people think the Marriage Act, what's so dignified about that? That's just fun. Well, that's not the way the church sees it. Again, seeing the human person as this image of God, the great dignity of the human person, when he and she engage in this most intimate act, with tremendous potential, that gives it a great dignity. And so the church teaches that and bases its teaching, its ethics on to some extent anyway, on the dignity of the Marriage Act. We're going to see that in a little bit. Reproductive technologies as substitute for the Marriage Act. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with them? We're going to look into that as well. Now, this question of soul-body duality is it's a bit technical in a way. We're using philosophical terms that many people consider out of date, but they still have great explanatory power. How the human person is what we say a duality, not a dualism. It's not that we are mind and kind of a separate body. No, the two together form the human person, mind and body. So much that they don't have much existence with one without the other. The body doesn't have really any existence without the soul. The soul, being spiritual, does continue without the body, but it is always lacking. We look forward. Our faith looks forward to, as we've insisted in the creed, we say it every Sunday, to the resurrection of the body and everlasting life, this reunion of body and soul. The importance of this is saying that the body is not just something that we have, but it's something that we are. I am my body. And that should give all of us the desire to take care of their bodies. Now, it is true that some people have very defective body. But even there should be a desire to take as good care as possible. Some cavalier, I'm a mind, my idea is to have as much pleasure, challenging to my mind, body is important. No, that is really a poor way of living, a deficient way of living. Our bodies are and our minds come together in this duality to form the human person. And for this reason, that the body is a good in itself, makes the church, just again to be consistent, that even though the mind seems to be completely unaware of what's going on inside of itself or of its environment, that the body, if it's still functioning well, should be sustained with even artificial nutrition and hydration. We'll look at that more closely again at the end, but it's an important principle. The important principle is this body-mind duality that makes up the human person. And then a natural law. What is natural law? It's something that you may have heard of. It certainly isn't, the law of gravity. That's not natural law. Natural law is the human participation in what God has designed in providence. It is we are aware of our, because of the resurrection of Jesus, that we have this eternal destiny. We reflect on the tendencies that we have as humans so that we may attain this supernatural, if you will, eternal destiny that Christ has won for us. So natural law is a reflection on the human person, how the person acts, what are the effects of the acts, with an end in mind of eternal life. Now, I kind of gave you a little summary of the whole course. I wonder if a lot of questions, if there are any questions. No one in the room here. Any online, any questions? David, why don't you have a question? Okay, we'll go on.
Yeah,
now we're getting.
I have one.
Okay, good. Yeah, I figured you probably had something thought. Go ahead.
When in the church history did the term natural law come into formation?
Well, it's been there from the beginning. Of course, it's something that we see in Aristotle, and then especially the Stoics in Roman philosophy. They developed it. So in reflecting on what is natural law, we go back to our old high school companion Cicero, who wrote a lot about it. And then there have been commentaries throughout the ages, and this is part of the debate today. Is Aquinas's view of the natural law, is that still current, or should we jettison that for a newer concept of the natural law? The church is pretty faithful to Thomas Aquinas, and basically uses his sense of it.
Okay. Is there a cousin to it, or a parallel, or something opposite to it?
To natural law?
Yes.
Well, some people would say that right and wrong is determined by what the majority thinks, or what the people agree on, and this produces law. Of course, natural law goes far beyond questions in medical ethics.
Well, the closest I can think of it as being at least parallel or complementary to it would be conscious, and the scripture speaks of the law written on our hearts.
Yeah, well, that's a way of talking about natural law. The natural law is this law that's written on our hearts, that we have to examine and then put on a page. And it's written on our hearts, but it's up to us to, what's the word? To tell about, to write about. Of course, the Ten Commandments has been called the perfect expression of the natural law. So this was a gift that God gave us, rather than us kind of experimenting and coming up after years of reflection and deliberation and adjustment with God. It's a little bit to talk like this. Perhaps is a little bit. The word a little far-fetched, but God gave us the Ten Commandments as the basics, the perfect expression of the natural law. And then the commentary on the Ten Commandments is what we have to do our ethics.
Okay.
Okay.
I have a question.
Now I want to get into the document of ethical and religious directives. We're starting here at part 4, and the course will be part 4 and part 5. I expect to get fairly much through part 4 today, and next week we'll have time to reflect on some questions. And I think 2 of the questions come from hospital cases that I was collaborating with a Mercy Hospital in St. Louis, and the ethicist there gave me a couple of cases that they had to work with. But we'll be looking at that next week. Just to say, we want to get as much as possible. Where are we? So we're about still in the first half of the evening. Directive 38. I'm going to read the directive and then make a comment or 2 on each one. When the marital act of a sexual intercourse is not able to attain its procreative purpose, assistance that does not separate the unitive and procreative ends of the act and does not substitute for the marital act itself may be used to help married couples conceive. This is to say that fertility assistance is something good. It's not that something that the church eschews and prohibits, but within limits. And the limits are the ones that I just mentioned. It should not separate the unitive from the procreative parts of the marriage act. A couple, it's intimate, is to bring them together so that they grow in love, they grow closer, so they can raise a family, so that their children will make the world even more, can we say human? Because because the Son of God became human. Or should we just say divine? We'll make the world a better place, make the world a more heavenly place, if you will, by their love and then their fostering this love in their children. But that's part of it. And then the procreative part, of course, that it's built in. The nature of this act is to procreate, to give creation to other children. So as long as the fertility assistance does not separate the 2 acts, when might it separate? Say artificial insemination. This is it's certainly okay for horses and cows, but not for humans, because we are created in the image of God. It's beneath our dignity, but also the marital love that brings the people together. That should be the environment in which children are born and gestated and given birth and then grow in. Okay.
Father,
Cindy?
I, I'm speaking as a woman, but what I'm trying to say is the reason this is hard is because women that can't conceive and have trouble conceiving, but yet they still have that desire, it's intense.
The desire, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's what we're made for. We're built for that.
Well, in part maybe, and certainly not completely that.
Yeah. Not everybody, but it's just kind of women have this longing.
Sure.
So I just thought I'd mention that.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, Beth? Okay. I'll have to, if I try to fool around with my buttons, I'm going to lose everything, I'm afraid. And that's so Beth is having trouble hearing. I'm going to repeat the question, but so don't stop asking questions. And you people in the hall here, we have I think 12 here in the hall. I'm very grateful that the response has been so welcoming. Okay, I want to get on with Directive 39. Those techniques of assisted conception that respect the unitive and procreative meanings of sexual intercourse and do not involve the destruction of human embryos or their deliberate generation in such numbers that it's clearly envisages that all cannot implant, and some are simply being used to maximize the chances of others implanting, may be used as therapies for infertility. So the previous directive said that there are some there are some means that are certainly legitimate, and here we have a further delineation of those means. Just a couple of terms. Let me, not to go off my notes so far. Embryos, the basic biology, embryos are formed from the union of the male spermatozoid with the female ovum, egg. They are human beings at their initial stage. Now, this is where many people want to disagree with us, but I think it's becoming clear that life does begin at conception. The embryo, which is at a very, very early time in the human being's life, after conception, not long after conception though, this embryo forms the union of the spermatozoid and the ovum creates what we call a zygote, and this cell multiplies itself and forms an embryo. What is the difference between an embryo and a fetus? Well, embryos are cells that haven't differentiated. You don't have skin, and you don't have bones, and you don't have muscles and other kinds of tissue in an embryo. All of those cells are potentially going to, if you will, explode and turn into a human being. It's been said, I think, well, that an embryo is not a potential human being. An embryo is a human being with great potential. It has everything there. So just as, say, a baby cannot talk, the embryo doesn't have these differentiated tissues there, but it's going to develop. It is a human being that's going to develop all of these wonderful faculties that we have. Now, I want to talk about the IVF, in vitro fertilization. Most of you have heard what in vitro means. It means on glass or in glass. It's the idea of a test tube baby. The spermatozoid and the ovum are united in not so much test tubes, they say, but in a Petri dish, in a glass dish, and you have the beginning of human life there.
Father, excuse
Yep.
me, Father, tell the
Yes.
joke. Tell the joke, Father.
I didn't make any jokes, Cindy. Okay. Okay. Now, this directive mentions about so many embryos are made, and more embryos are usually made than can be safely implanted in the woman's uterus, and so they are super abundant, and the question is, what do you do with them? And this is this is I found interesting in the church's thinking. What these fertility doctors do with them is they examine the embryos for the best combinations to give children, or the human beings, the most desirable characteristics that the couple wants. What is this but eugenics? This is what we criticize the Nazis for, and even in our country, in the first part of the 20th century, there was studies, eugenic studies, and then they were abandoned because no, this is not good. It's not right. The embryos with the right characteristics would be implanted. The ones without the right characteristics, well, they would be perhaps destroyed, perhaps put in freezing. Destroying a human being, this is how the church thinks. This image of God, it's not right. It's wrong to destroy, to freeze them as if they were, little veal cutlets that you take out when you eat them. No, that's below the dignity of a human person as well. Let's see. Oh, I know I'm going the wrong way. Let's see. Okay. So in vitro fertilization, the extra embryos, why that's a problem. Cryopreservation is just what is called the process of freezing embryos. I'm sure it's done, with technical exactness, right temperature, the right pressure, and those forth. Now, this last question, embryo adoption, is pretty much a Catholic question, and it's a very interesting question, I think. You have these extra embryos. People go in, and I didn't mention one of the difficulties I'm sure most of you are aware of. This fertility assistance in vitro fertilization is very expensive. One of our Catholic doctors told me it's also very time consuming. But anyway, they make a lot of, they put a lot of embryos together, so you don't have to go through the trouble of doing it again and again. And so, there are many there. So it's expensive and time consuming. And the point is, it is not that successful. I mean, 30% I think is pretty much the average most people give of the number of rounds that the women goes through that are successful. The point is, we're not talking about a waste of money or a waste of time. We're talking of the destruction of a human being, and that's what the church objects to. But anyway, so embryo adoption, I think this is very interesting, and is one of the hot topics among Catholic ethicists. You have the embryo there. The couple is who, from which the embryo came, it's not going to use it. Is it possible to take that embryo and put it into the womb of a woman, of a couple that wants to have a baby? Wouldn't that kind of solve a problem, be good for everyone? Now, the church recognizes the question. It hasn't made a definitive answer on this, but it seems to me, from what the church has said before, that it cannot say that that is legitimate, that that is good. Why? Because, and this is the sacredness of the marriage covenant, the purpose of the Marriage Act. The couple, there's an implicit agreement in, I know, when young people get married, they're not thinking about other people. They're thinking of coming together. But there is an implicit agreement that they will not have children by any other except the spouse to whom they've made this contract. It is part of the dignity of not only of the human person, but of this human alliance or covenant that people make in marriage. So the church has said that. Now, the recognize, well, what do you do with all of these embryos? It really is a problem. Do you keep them in storage, in cold storage, for perpetuity? You can't destroy them. That would be destroying a human being. In documents the church has recognized, and then it's saying here that it hasn't said it is permissible to, if you will, give it to a couple so that they may have a birth baby, that the woman may gestate the baby, even though it comes from the biological material of other people. Now, are there any questions on that? Can you hear me, people online?
I hear you.
Okay.
I hear you, Father. I was thinking that people might start selling their embryos if that was.
Oh, well, you know that happens, of course.
It must.
Yeah, and this is another travesty, the human person being bought and sold, huh? This is what all this thing of slavery is about, and some people want to do it again.
Father, I have a question.
Please, yeah?
If it's okay to adopt a child that has been conceived and born,
Right, and born, sure.
why can't this then be sort of like an early form of adoption for families that can't have a child? I mean, I'm 80 years old, so this is not relevant
you're
to
not
me.
looking for
So, okay, but I'm just bringing that up as wondering if the church has discussed that.
No, certainly the church has thought of that. And as I said, it has not come out with a definitive stand on this. And I know very good, very Catholic ethicists who are arguing for it as kind of an exception where the intentions are very pure. But the reason is, again, what's implicit in the marriage covenant. When two people give themselves to one another in this marriage covenant, the sacrament, the sign of Christ's love for the church, if you will, you can extend this idea of church. Vatican II did it to the whole world. Christ's love for the world is pure, that you will not conceive with anyone else but this person that you're committed to. Okay, let's move on. 40, the Directive 40. Heterologous fertilization, that is any technique used to achieve conception by the use of the gametes coming from at least one donor other than the spouses, is prohibited because it is contrary to the covenant of marriage, the unity of the spouses, and the dignity proper to parents and the child. This is in vitro fertilization. Sometimes they take the sperm from a man other than the spouse. Maybe say the man in this matrimony has some defective genes that they doesn't want to hand on, and yet the couple wants the baby, so they take the sperm from another person. Well, the church says no. That is wrong because it violates the marriage covenant. You would only conceive by one another, and human dignity implies that, first of all, that the child is conceived through the marriage act and in the womb of its mother. And to do it outside of the womb is, we can say quickly, a violation of dignity, but also I think we can say it makes the child kind of a product of human, I want to use this word and I'll explain it, it's in the notes a little bit down the line, of human artifice, and not a creation of God through the agency of the parents. And when we think of ourselves as products of humans, we might lose our connection with the Creator, even though, in a sense, the Creator is the one who started things in the beginning, who started things going. So we look at a child born from in vitro fertilization as perfectly human as anyone else. But anyway, we want to think of ourselves as created and not just produced. And this is what's telling about a lot of what we hear in press. We talk about reproductive rights. Again, a sense of human manipulation rather than God creating a human being by, if you will, there's that physical matter that comes the process. I've alluded to the process before, the sperm and the ovum coming together. But during that, we think of God infusing a soul at some point in this development. Now, for some reason I really don't understand, I'm sure it's good, the church has refused to say that this happens at the moment of conception. But you have the matter there that's going to be infused with the soul by God, and at the very beginning, if not the very beginning, close to the very beginning, that we don't allow, the church doesn't allow the destruction of the embryo, this very early stage. Just to say, when it talks about gametes here, gametes are the reproductive cells of the male or female, the spermatozoid and the ovum, with 23 chromosomes. That's half the usual number, 46 chromosomes. 23 comes from the man, 23 comes from the woman, and they come together to form a human being with the full 46 chromosomes. Again, the covenant of marriage assumes that the that they will have, a couple will have children only by one another. So heterologous fertilization is really unthinkable. And then the human dignity implies the right to be born as a result of this act of love. Huh? Maybe we're so imbued in this sexual culture that we don't think of the marital act as a real act of complete self-giving of one person to another, that the whole self, and the other is received and gives herself, or whatever you want to put first, back to the others. And they give, and this is important, we're going to say this a little later, they give to each other their complete selves, including their fertility. So to hold back that fertility, the church sees as something defective about that love. You're not giving your whole self if you want to hold back the fertility by some artificial method. Okay. Please.
Yeah, I have a question.
This is Roxy. Go ahead.
Isn't it true that the Catholic Church, we're the only ones that view marriage as a sacrament? Protestants don't. The Christian Protestants.
No, Orthodox, you can say the Orthodox Church, right? We'll view it as this, I think.
So, how do we handle the fact? What gives us the right to apply this sacramental nature that we're all accepting
Yes, right.
and loving
Yeah.
to the Christian Protestants that are having these fertility problems and don't share?
Well, I don't know if you're asking, we say there's something naturally wrong in it. We're not saying that the people are committing sin because they don't know that it's wrong. And the sin, you have to be aware of what you're doing is wrong. Otherwise, you don't have a sin there. And of course, we look at it with a bit of regret. What's some of this cost? I won't talk about the in vitro fertilization, but say that, I don't want to start a grand discussion on contraception, but what we see happening is that these great cultures, Western culture, is being besieged because the lack of fertility. We're not reproducing ourselves, but that's the church doesn't argue from consequences, from what happens. It may use it to support its argument, but it argues from the nature of things. And this is kind of a difference. I'm reflecting upon this, is that our American mentality, and after all, all of us are Americans, our American mentality tells us that what is true is what works. What works to meet our needs or our desires. But the church tries to look deeper in that. Now, in looking deeper, we have to make judgments on things that we cannot prove scientifically, but yet these are age-old concepts that seem to be verified by experience. Okay, I don't know if, okay, let's go on to 41, Directive 41. Homologous artificial fertilization, that is any technique used to achieve conception using the gametes of the couple involved, is prohibited when it separates procreation from the marital act in its unitive significance. That is, and for example, any technique used to achieve extracorporeal conception. And here, this is just kind of reaffirming its censure of in vitro fertilization. Because a child, and this it impresses me, I don't know if it impresses you, a child has a right to be born of a loving act between its parents, to be gestated by its mother, and to be raised by a loving, it's a right of a child. You know, we talk a lot about rights, parents' rights to have children. Well, the truth is the rights are really on the other side. It's the child's right to have parents from the very beginning. I already told you this idea, the procreation versus reproduction. We hear the church is consistent in talking about procreation. Our Western society, if you want to use that term, now likes to talk about reproduction. Humans are in charge of it. It is a bit, what's the word, proud, what's the Greek term? Someone help me. The Greek term where,
Hubris,
hubris, you got it. Who said that?
Eliza.
Oh, good, very good. Hubris is a bit hubris, isn't it? You think you're in charge of everything. Well, yeah, it is an amazing feat that you put together the two gametes and have a human being, but it's hardly, you didn't produce the original material. Anyway, the church has, this is, I don't want to talk too much about it. It's kind of unseeming, to talk about using masturbation to obtain sperm, not right, because these sexual organs are dedicated to the marriage act, the unitive and creative dimensions. If there is, just to say, what if there's need for testing in giving fertility assistance to testing the sperm, the sperm count and all of that. Well, this is the church says, have the couple have intercourse with a perforated condom, so that there will be transmission in the marriage act, but there will be some sperm reserved that you can test. I'm not, anyway, I just thought I'd mention it to say that, some of these problems that as the church seems to create can be resolved. I guess that's the whole point of that. Artificial insemination, I said this before, it's fine. It's for horses and cows, I was talking to the Bishop of Lexington, Kentucky a couple weeks ago. He's a friend of mine, and I stopped to see him. And he was saying about this horse farm that had the latest Triple Crown winner, how the horse is used just as a stud, well, that's fine for horses. But human beings are something different, something greater, much greater than a Kentucky Derby winner. We're in the image of God in the human person.
Father Carmen?
Yep.
This is Christina. There's a comment in the chat box. If you could just, when you were talking about the child has a right to be born of loving parents, there's a comment about, what about children conceived during rape?
We're going to talk about that in a minute. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
We're going to talk about that in a minute. Certainly, this is a great violation of the child's right, but we can't destroy the child. But we're going to see, and this may surprise some people, what the church says in this. The secular world, they think the church is is so far behind the times that they probably wouldn't even want to comment on it. But we'll see that in a few minutes. So if you just give me a little bit, we're going to get to that directive. Okay, where are we now? Yeah. Okay, yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, And next week, I have this other computer. I can't set it up now, but maybe we could put that in and we can add more sound, or we can get we probably can get some, what do they call it? Parlantes. What do you say? Speakers. And to project this out. You know, the question was, what about rape? You know, how about the child's right to be born of loving parents in that case? Very good question. And we're going to see something that's going to surprise a couple of us, I think. Okay, because of the dignity of the child and of marriage, and because of the uniqueness of the mother-child relationship, participation in contracts or arrangements for surrogate motherhood is not permitted. Moreover, the commercialization of such surrogacy denigrates the dignity of women, especially the poor. And you see here a picture. This was just come up with my Word program or the PowerPoint program, the Indian woman. I guess there's a real trade in India for women to carry children conceived in a laboratory to birth. And, you know, they're poor. They could use another $10,000, $20,000, and they receive it. What is it doing to us? Our body, you know, our bodies are ourselves, and we're selling them to do something intimate involving other people. It's a denigration of our bodies. So we say here, surrogacy violates the right of a child to be gestated, to be brought to term by its parents, and to be conceived by a loving act of their parents. But it also violates the human dignity of women whose bodies are being used just to give birth. You know, the intimacy of their bodies to children of another of other people. Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the surrogacy and how so many women, vulnerable women, are exploited.
Comment on the surrogacy and vulnerability of women. Please, go ahead.
Across the world, in India and in the United States. I had read recently about a case of because a woman basically signs over her rights of her body.
A woman signs over her rights to keeping the baby when she takes on the surrogacy, yeah?
And how a surrogate mother was given a child, and the parents, when they found out the child had some disorder that they tested through genetic testing, they wanted to abort the child, and the surrogate mother did not. And there was this whole trying to force the surrogate mother to abort the baby.
Yeah.
And she ended up fleeing the state with the baby.
These kind of scandalous, incredible arguments. I don't know if everyone heard. She's just a case that you heard about. The surrogate mother was carrying this baby. The parents found out in the meantime that it might have a disorder, so they ordered that this fetus be aborted, and the surrogate mother wanted to keep it. She wanted to keep, you know, like her baby. And who has the right in this case? Who does have the right? Right, exactly. The baby has the rights. That's for sure. But the courts will want to have their say in it. Okay. A Catholic healthcare institution that provides treatment for infertility should offer not only technical assistance to infertile couples, but also should help couples pursue other solutions. Counseling, so that they might, to help them to conceive, adoption. It's just saying that hospitals should provide this service as well. Help these poor people. And, you know, it's easy to, it's only natural to empathize with couples that that haven't been able to have children. We all hear these cases. I have one of my is director of religious education in the Diocese of Fort Worth, and she, after a number of years, I don't know, 5 years, they're having children, so they adopted, and wouldn't you know, the next year they had their own child, and I guess now they have 3. Okay, now we want to get into, well, a Catholic healthcare institution should provide prenatal, obstetric, and postnatal services for mother and their children in a manner consonant with its mission. Now, the mission of Catholic hospitals is to take care of the poor. In part, it's their mission. So that may be part of it. But I think here, what it's getting at is that to never to suggest having an abortion when people, a couple may find out through some type of testing that there is a birth defect. So I think this directive has more of that in mind. Let's see, 44. The directive has more in mind the mission to respect life and dignity, including the dignity of marital love. This directive then advises not to prescribe artificial contraception and not to promote sterilization. Okay. People who have these genetic problems, consonant with his mission, as it says here, is to, not to recommend or prescribe I keep the Spanish anticonceptives. What do we say? Contraceptives. Okay. We go. A big one. Now we're going to bring the question of rape. Abortion that is the directly intended termination of pregnancy before viability or the directly intended destruction of a viable fetus is never permitted. We all know the church's stand here. Every procedure whose sole immediate effect is the termination of pregnancy before viability is an abortion, which in its moral context includes the interval between conception and implantation of the embryo. Catholic healthcare institutions are not to provide abortion services, even based upon the principle of material cooperation. In this context, Catholic healthcare institutions need to be concerned about the danger of scandal in any association with abortion providers. Now, there's a lot to this directive, so we're going to take a little time. First, I think it has one thing in mind is rape victims. They're brought to the hospital. What do you do? Well, at one time, it was to do a how do you say it? DNC? What's the dilation and cutting cutilage?
Curettage.
Yeah. Okay. Now, aware that that may be killing a human being, the church will say the first thing you do beyond, of course, giving some type of care, of support to the person, is to test whether they have conceived or not. And evidently there are tests that do indicate whether conception has taken place. If conception has taken place, it is wrong to terminate the process of implantation or to try to destroy the embryo. But this is the interest. If conception has not taken place, you have the evidence from this test that's given. Give the woman a contraceptive. You're giving a person a contraceptive, isn't that wrong? No, because it is wrong to to try to prevent conception in a union in which both of the couple, both participants agree to. But in this case, there's been a violation of the person. The person who was raped didn't give any consent to the union. So there would be a reason, a powerful reason to use the contraceptive so that the union wouldn't take place, the conception wouldn't take place. Now, this to me is interesting. I don't know if it's happened again, and honestly, I never met a person to whom this happened. But when I was going through studies, seminary, we were told about missionary religious in countries where there was a fair possibility of them being raped, regularly taking contraceptives. They weren't engaging in sexual activity, so in any way, but just in case they were raped, so they wouldn't have, they wouldn't conceive and have to carry a baby. But this is quite consistent to what we're saying now about what to do in this emergency situation. Let's see. Talk about cooperation in evil. This is this we can talk for an hour about. I want to give a kind of a quick summary of what's cooperation, either in good or evil. What we're talking about, since the problem is when you cooperate in evil. We say that there are basically two kinds of cooperation. One we call formal cooperation, and this is where you help the person who's doing something wrong with the same intention as that person. Think of an abortion. You want this baby aborted, so you are the nurse that helps the doctor do the abortion. That's formal cooperation. There's also in that material cooperation, but we think of material cooperation as giving physical assistance without the consent of the mind. So I'm against abortion, but it's my job, so I'm going to help the abortionist. Well, then, how about that? Who qualifies to give a material cooperation? I mean, obviously the nurse who's assisting right there, making it possible for the abortionist to work. How about the receptionist in the waiting room? How about the gardener who comes at night that cuts the grass? He's contributing to the effort in a sense. Well, these are different kinds of material cooperation, and this is the way the church has, or at least the this objective morality looks at it. If it is necessary to complete the act, the nurse involved, this is called immediate material cooperation. It's wrong. It's wrong. It's sinful. The other kinds of cooperating, the receptionist, the gardener, and they are involved in what we call mediate material cooperation, and the morality is determined by, actually, we can say, by the closeness to the act. Gardener comes at night, not going to really be involved in can't really implicate him too much in the abortion at all. But the problem, and this is, it's alluded to here, scandal. The guy wears a shirt, goes to church with the shirt of, Planned Parenthood abortion services. He's the gardener, but this is what he's going to give scandal. This guy is coming communion and he helps with abortion. So you have to be careful not to give scandal.
Father, I have a question.
Yeah, is that Cindy?
you might get mad at me because it's a stupid question, but what about the power company and the running water?
What about the power company and yeah, the water company, yeah. No, those are so remote that as responsible for responsible for the act.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
Good. Okay, this is good. This is where we finished last night in Spanish. We'll go until 8:30 and get a little bit farther. Next week, I think we're going to have, you're going to see the questions. I'm going to give you the questions that I'm sending to you through email that you might consider beforehand. I think they're very, very good questions. But anyway, that's next week we'll be doing these test cases rather than say questions, test cases. Anyway, here we are, 46. Catholic healthcare providers should be ready to offer compassionate physical, psychological, and moral spiritual care to those persons who have suffered from the trauma of abortion. The church is becoming more sensitive, probably as a response to its critic. You know, you care about the child until it's born, but not afterward. And you know, you care about the woman when she's pregnant, but not afterward. No, the church. No. We have to. If we're going to be who we claim to be, followers of Jesus, the compassionate one, we have to provide this kind of support to those who have suffered from abortion. And maybe this keeps people in touch. I suppose you can be desensitized to abortion. Evidently, most women who've had it suffer from knowing what they have done, from guilt, if you will. And it is not a good thing to have this guilt taken away. Confession, yes, and by the grace of God, but not to be talked out of it as a kind of a psychological exercise. Okay, let's go on. We have a few minutes. 47, operations, treatments, and medications that have as their direct purpose the cure of a proportionate serious pathological condition of a pregnant woman are permitted when they cannot be safely postponed until the unborn child is viable, even if they will result in the death of the unborn child. This is an important statement. You know, the church does not say that in every case the child has to be born. There's been a couple of very interesting cases, mothers who have cancer and they need cancer treatment. They know the cancer treatment will cause the death of the child. Is it permissible to give them the cancer treatment, the death of the fetus? And they say, if it is to save her life, yes, you can do it, even though the unintended effect will be the death of the infant, of the fetus. Okay, and we call this reasoning, and this is where we can end, it'll maybe take us a couple more minutes, but it's a very important point, the principle of double effect, where you have an action that's going to have two effects. One, at least one of them would be a good effect, and one of them a bad effect. And there may be more than the two, but at least you have those two, one good and one bad. Is it permissible to do the action? And the church, and the answer is, well, maybe, and we give these conditions. The intended object must be good. The case of the mother with cancer, she needs this treatment right away, or she's going to die. So that's our objective: is to help this woman to save her life. That's the good, and of course that's good. That's our objective, and that's good. The intention of the agent must be to achieve the good effect and to avoid the evil effect as much as possible. So how do you avoid the evil effect? Say, you know, the woman is at 20 weeks. If she can just last 4 more weeks, we probably can save the baby. What are the odds that she lasts, that she can live 4 more weeks without the treatment? Well, it's got to be her choice, you know. But if she says, "Nah, you know, the odds are too slim, I better take the treatment now," okay, respect that, and that would be perfectly legitimate, not criticizing the choice. But perhaps he's willing to take the risk for her child, and this is what's happened in a couple of heroic cases, huh? Excellent. But this is what we mean by avoiding the evil effect as much as possible. The foreseen benefit must not be the result of the evil effect. It's not that killing the child is producing the saving the mother's life, huh? What's producing the mother's life is this medicine, is this treatment that she's going to receive. And then finally, the foreseen benefits of the action must be proportionate, that is equal to or greater to the foreseen harmful effects. Again, in our abortion case, huh? Saving the mother's life, you can say, is proportionate to losing the infant's life. But if it is, you know, saving the mother's career as an actress to get rid of the baby because she wants to have this career, well, I don't know if this is a real application of the effect, but that would be disproportionate. So there's got to be a good reason to do it. Okay, now we've gone through quite a bit of material tonight. If you want to just take a minute or two more, if there are any questions, yeah, Roxy, please.
Keep referring to these Catholic
We keep referring,
hospitals.
yes, Catholic, yeah.
Well, I had my children at St. Joseph.
Okay, Roxy says you have your children at St. Joseph's, yeah?
St. Peter used to have an orphanage.
Yeah.
And they did adoptions.
Yeah.
And then they closed that. What are the Catholic hospitals and services in our city? What is St. Francis? Is the Baptist hospital, the Methodist hospitals, aren't they all, they keep the name?
Yeah, but are they affiliated with the?
It poses a problem.
Yes, right, it does. Roxy's talking about the problem posed by the church in many cases, leaving the institutions behind. I was told that Martin Luther King, when he was shot, was brought to the Catholic hospital. Yeah, he died at the Catholic, and of course, yeah, and that doesn't exist anymore. Of course, this it causes a great deal of regret, huh? We're saying Jesus was in the ministry of healing, and we're not continuing that. Well, not continuing it all over because of the great difficulties, the great burdens. You know, this is a discussion of medical delivery system, and of course, it's beyond what we're here to do. I was kind of impressed by, I lived in El Paso for a while, and they had the Daughters of Charity, had their hospital. They called it house, what was it called? Birth House or City House, something like that. That was the name of the hospital. And, you know, most of the kids in El Paso at one time were born at that facility. They had to close, huh? They didn't have the vocations and for all those reasons. Well, they took the money that they received from the hospital and they developed healthcare clinics for the poor. You know, it's something, and these great institutions are very important, and when they close, they're hard to open again. That's why, you know, it's worth struggling to save La Bonaire here and in other places. Thank you all for your attention. I hope you found it worthwhile. You should be getting an email from me with the notes, and not only for this week, but for next week. And if you want to give feedback, don't hesitate. Rather feedback and better give me feedback, suggestions, criticism, suggestions coming back than just walking away. But that's of course up to you. Thank you very much. God bless you. And
Thank you, Father.
see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very appreciated.
Oh,
Thank
it's my
you.
pleasure.
Thank you, Father.
Thank you.
See you next week, Father.
Okay,
Thank you, Father.
my pleasure.
Thank
Oh,
you.
yeah, you mentioned this. Good.
But on it, you can read this
Yeah.
and then give it back to me. But
Okay.
it shows all the things that they've done. This,
Okay, you know how to go out, huh? Let me take it out.
Hi, Carolina. Bye, David.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Hi, James. Bye, Carmen.
Hey, Mimi, are you still there?
Who'd you say? Mimi?
Yeah, Mimi, I'm wondering if her daughter had the baby.
I'm not Mimi.
Oh,
I
no,
was just-
there's another Mimi. Sorry.
Oh, I'm not Mimi. Oh, bye, Christina. See you next
Bye.
week. Bye, Carolina. See you next week. Oh, well. I'm leaving. Yeah, you saw my hand. Yay.
Good night.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.